So anybody saying there has to be violence, you can just tell them right there on the spot. You're just a
No white guilt.
What do you say to people who say that a violence has to take place? There needs to be violence for us to reclaim our destiny. That is another example of an act, a feat, a challenge that can never be accomplished. So you can say a lot of things to those people to motivate them, to get them away from that idea. You can tell them they're cowards because they're doing nothing. They're waiting for the big day when the war can finally be waged. They're just cowards. Just put them on that's what I do most of the time. I tell them, you're just a coward because you don't want to work now for white well-being. This is just an excuse. This is just an excuse to sit on your ass. Because you're not going to, if you can't fight at the PTA, the Parent Teacher Association meeting, you're not going to fight when lead is flying. You're not going to fight when limbs are being blown off. You're a coward. And I know you as a coward for this argument. Furthermore, anti-whites control violence. The evidence is everywhere, and it's been that way for many generations. The field of violence is one in which anti-whites in the regime want us to venture because it's impossible to contend with them. There is no, and there will be no, and sometimes this is implicit in these arguments, Mike, is that the violence, there needs to be a civil war. There is no oppositional pole. You need an oppositional pole to the regime that serves as gravity for those who want to resist. You can look at every example in history of internecine conflict where peoples have vied for control over an area, i.e. a civil war. And there's always been an oppositional pole. It cannot exist without it. There is nothing for people to come around and say, this is the moral basis for my resistance against that. This is the governing authorities that serve as the basis for my resistance to that. If you don't have, there's this confusion that I believe absolutely has to be a federal operation, in my opinion, that tells people, and it obviously would be something. I mean, the FBI has revealed numerous times about, and look into it for yourself, maybe I'm wrong, about setting up operations where they serve as this hub, this honeypot for violent talk so that people who are inclined to violence will come to them and they justify saying they do this so that they can get these people off the street before they do violence. Now, if that's not true, then I'm wrong, but check it out. And they communicate this idea that a resistance to organized resistance, organized, established, armed with high-tech weaponry you can't even fathom, with sound weapons that can liquefy your organs, that you can somehow resist this with anarchic resistance, anarchic violence. It cannot be. Just imagine being in a village of 100 people. And even if you had 90 of them who were angry, but the requirement here in this thought experiment is that the 90 of you cannot come together to resist the 10. Because that's the reality of our countries and our civilization. There's no oppositional pole. You can't come together. There is no, like in the War for Southern Independence, it was, you had an entire ethnicity. You had established figureheads. There was a morality in the South. There was a history, etc., that all of these people clung to. There was authority in the form of government across the South. That 90 in that tribe of 100 would never be able to overcome the 10 because of it. End of conversation. So anybody saying there has to be violence, you can just tell them right there on the spot, you're just a coward. If you can't take somebody calling you a bad name, you're not going to take anybody shooting a sound cannon at you that will turn your heart muscle into loose tissue, my friend. You sit all day on the couch eating potato chips. It's going to have to come to violence. Well, you're not going to be a part of it.